It's me, King Polly, and I'm getting my birth chart read by the Autumn Joy Astrology. How exciting is that? I've waited my whole life, literally, figuratively, symbolically, and I knew the day would come, and I knew the right person would appear. And guess what? She did. And guess how we met? Instagram. God, I love Instagram. Well, I mean, I love the people that I meet on Instagram. I can't wait for you guys to witness this and join in. I'm nervous, I'm excited, and you're about to get to know me a lot more. Let's go. Hi.
Hey,
It's you in real life.
it's you in real life.
Autumn Joy. Okay, do you go by Autumn Joy?
No, just
Joy.
Autumn. Autumn is totally.
Autumn.
Joy is my middle name, but my friends call me Autumn. I don't expect for them to call me Autumn Joy. That would be
Okay.
way too pretentious and weird. Like
It's so funny meeting on Instagram because literally I think of your name as your Instagram handle. So it's just Autumn Joy.
Well, I even thought, I'm like, wait, do I call her King Polly or?
And that's always the thing too, I have to say. So my name is Abby.
Abby. Is it BBY or IE?
BBY.
Beautiful.
And it's just Abby. And then King Polly. You can call me anything though.
So you
like
have
literally.
You have to tell me. Okay, so you just saying you can call me anything literally is like your 12th house like personified. Like I don't have an identity. There is no ego. Let it be gone. Like it's your shape-shifting identities that's your 12th house. Because a lot of people are like, no, that's my name. You know what I mean? They're like, my name is Peter. You call me Peter. Don't call me Pete, whatever it may be.
Right. Like my husband's name is Sean. Okay.
Yeah.
And he spells it SHAWN. If you spell it even wrong, he's like, no. He has to correct it.
Totally.
So we're so yin yang in that. And that is so funny. Oh my God.
And I definitely want to know what his sun sign is. I need to know. I want to know if he's, okay, don't tell me. I want to know if he's either a Gemini or a Cancer.
Ooh.
Because so like your 7th house, if I was going to like show you your chart real quick, but I'll just tell you the 7th house, which is opposite the 1st house. So the 1st house is like who we are, our identity, how we identify ourselves, like just us, ourselves. And then the 7th house is the other. So what tends to happen is that people are attracted to whatever sign that 7th house is ruled by. For you, it's Gemini and Cancer. So usually like people will marry or be with those who rule that 7th house.
That is so interesting. Totally. So when I think of Gemini Cancer, I mean, for me, he's super like emotionally nurturing, Cancerish, but he's actually Taurus sun.
Oh yeah. Well, that makes sense too.
And so the yin yang to my Taurus moon.
Exactly. Like that sun and the moon coming together, like he offers that, well, number one, protection, security, stability. And then also enjoying like the earthly pleasures of life, like music, food, the outdoors, like all of that beautiful Tauran stuff that you need to feel comfortable. But dude, you have more Pisces energy in your chart than I do because of all your 12th house placements. So one thing you might not understand is like, there's water houses, right? So there's the 4th house, which is the house of Cancer. And then there's and then of course there's the 8th house, which is the house of Scorpio. And then the 12th house, which is the house of Pisces. So if you have planets that fall in any of those water houses, it gives you this total watery vibe. So it's interesting because your chart, you were like, oh, it might be 10 minutes this way or that.
Right.
It actually will make a difference a little bit because you have stuff really close to the cusp. I want to show you real quick.
Wow.
So it depends on do you see that?
Oh my gosh, I see it.
This is you.
Yes. Autumn, I have waited for you my whole life, just so you know. I really have, and I knew it would come. And then it was just so obvious once I met you and connected. It was like, oh, you were just so.
When you said you were born in 86, I was like my head just kind of blew off. I was like, oh, it totally makes sense why we connect. We have so many similar, of course, like all the outer planets are in the same sign because we're born the same year. But like, so I'm going to show you one thing. So it's 7:25 a.m., right? And
Yeah, I have a feeling more so it's on that side than the 35 side.
yeah, so if it's the really interesting thing is that you see the sun is at 20 degrees of
Mm-hmm.
Sagittarius. So that's definitely in the 12th house. So your sun is in the house of Pisces, which gives that Sagittarian sun like all that Piscean energy because that's where it's kind of manifesting.
Wow.
But what's more interesting is Uranus. So Uranus is so close to the sun. It's only 2 degrees away. So like we're going to talk about, well, I'll just tell you what it means. It's like when you have Uranus so close to the sun when you're born, it's like a lightning bolt. It's like you were literally like electric, like in your body. You're very aware of that electric energy. But like, I mean, little things like static electricity, like you're always like shocking yourself, or yeah, like you're charged by Uranus. And Uranus is this like amazing planet because it's like after Saturn, which Saturn is like, keeps everything together. It's the last planet you can see with the naked eye. So like they didn't even know Uranus existed, back in the day. But Uranus is the one that really comes in and like shakes everything up. It's like, no, we're not doing it this way anymore. We're going to do it this way because it's kind of the elevation of the consciousness of, it's like the elevation of humanity, really. It's like, okay, yeah, we can follow rules and have military and like be very, structured and have stability and structure and material. But beyond that is like Uranus, which is like, yeah, we can have all that, but we're going to go into this other dimension where things are like technology, aliens, like anything that's like out of the box, crazy, wild. But what it does in your chart when it's so close to the sun is it gives you this, well, number one, like you don't want to follow the rules. This is the rebellious nature of wanting to be eccentric, wanting to be different, wanting to be outside the box and all those beautiful things. And also shocking other people out of it too, like being shocking actually.
Wow.
So like your comedy is so wonderful because it is so outside the box, odd, weird, and it's this Aquarian, right? Because Uranus rules Aquarius, so it's like this heavy Aquarius energy. But the
Wow.
thing is like, so it's see how it's at 22 degrees and 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So your ascendant starts at 22 degrees and 4 minutes. So it's like so close to being in that 12th house. It's like right on your ascendant, which is like the first breath you took. That's what we always call the ascendant. This is really where your life begins. This moment. And then like Uranus was just like a lightning bolt, just kind of like electrified you into this world and made you so, well, you're very unique, but even more unique because Uranus is right there on your ascendant.
Oh my gosh. This all it already too explains so much just in this level. I've always been so confused my whole life until recently.
Yeah.
And just like what? And this level of the Pisces, the water energy, I never knew, or I denied that, or I stuffed my emotions for so long. I had to, all of this stuff. And I am, like my husband always says, he's like, your bark is way bigger than your bite. Like he knows I'm just this ball of sensitivity.
Girl, look at all this water. Water, Scorpio,
Wow.
all this in a water house. Neptune in your first house. Okay, having Neptune in your first house is like being a Pisces because the first house, of course, is like who we are.
Wow.
Like, again, it's our identity, it's our body, it's the way we look, like physically, too. And when you have
Mm.
Neptune rules Pisces. So when you have Neptune in the first house, it's like you're a fish, girl. You're a fish just swimming in the waters of consciousness, really. Um, you have like I said, you have more Pisces energy than, and then you have Mars and Jupiter in Pisces. So it's like you're Pisces all over. Um
Wow. Like I always felt the opposite. I'm or thought, right? I should say
well,
thought with
well,
my
you're
mind.
Sag. Well, your Sag, of course, is like, of course, it's obvious. You are a Sag. You have that Well, the thing about Sag is like it's a spiritual sign, you know.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think, oh, it's a fire sign, so it's really like in your face, or I don't know, it's really passionate. It's really, it's like actually, you know, Sag is, you know, associated with Jupiter, which is the co-ruler of Pisces. But
Wow.
it's associated with Sag. So it's for Sagittarius, it's really all about wisdom. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
expansion, and it's all about finding the meaning of life. It's a very spiritual sign. So, and having all this spirituality, all this Sag energy in the 12th house of Pisces, which is more spiritual energy. So I want to talk to you about the 12th house. Do you know anything about it?
That it is a mystery that
Yeah.
when I first found out I had some planets in it, you know, just it always just felt like there's a lot here that will be revealed to me. And I all I know about it is a karmic house is the only thing really I've heard, and I love hearing it in songs.
Yeah, and not only is a karmic house, but you have the planet of karma, which is Saturn, in the karmic house. So that's kind of a difficult one. But if you want to start with your sun in the 12th house, it's like, okay, the sun wants to be in the first house because the sun is ruled by Aries, and Aries rules that first house. So, like, of course, the sun, it's your vital force energy. It's like that, it's the most, you know, bright thing about our entire chart is our sun sign. So it's like wherever that is placed is where we're going to shine. So that house gets really lit up by the sun. For you, it's a little different because the 12th house is like walking into a dark room with, you know, headphones on, like blindfolded. You know, the 12th house is really all about faith and trust, and
Mm.
really like the house of Pisces is really about, it's where everything kind of goes to dissolve. It's where we go to transcend our physical body, because we don't have a physical body in the 12th house. So to have the sun, which is all about the physical body, in the 12th house is like again, when you were like, call me whatever you want, because the 12th house is all about really like cutting ourselves off from that ego self. I don't really like the word ego because it's so like people get really weird about it.
But I love it. In terms of I've come to an understanding for me with it.
Right. I like personality more because it kind of
Mm.
is like, because everyone has to have an ego. If we didn't have an ego, we would
Right.
be staring blindly into space. Like you have to have some form of who you are or how you want to represent yourself in a physical world,
To
right?
exist here.
Right. But when you have the sun in the 12th house, it's like you're totally comfortable just being your spirit self. Like the 12th house is our soul, it's our spirit self. It's the thing that you can't see that is connected to the physical body, right? So, House of Pisces is really where we lose that sense of our personality, our ego self in the physical world, and where we can connect to our soul and our spirit self, which I'm sure you can do this very well because not only do you have the sun here, but you have Mercury here. So this is like, this is some deep, deep shit, girl.
Uh-huh.
When you have Mercury in the 12th house, so Mercury is really how we like how we really process and sift through everyday life, like how we learn, how we see, how we teach, how we communicate, but it's really how we're processing our immediate environment every day. So it's a, you know, it's at home in the third house, which is the house of Gemini, and which is funny because you have the Pisces in the third house. But when you have Mercury in the 12th house, it's like you have a direct line to the spiritual world.
Mm.
It's like being able to pick up the phone, like, or
Mhm.
rather, it's like you get it in a Piscean way. So it's really all that information that's coming from the spiritual realm, the Pisces realm, is coming to you. It probably comes to you in dreams because 12th house is the
Mhm.
house of dreams. It probably comes to you like audient. You're probably clairaudient.
Mhm.
Music is probably really important to you. Um, so
Super.
so you're like totally tapped into that which no one can see.
Thank you for like validating,
Right.
because for so long it's wandering around. And then too, depending on, what environment you grow up in. And it's just like deeply, like just always deeply just had a connection and a faith and a deep desire for seeking and delving into, it started young, what I would read about, all the churches I would go to. Just, I was so interested in all of it. And I love all of it.
Oh yeah. It's like honestly, the deeper that you dive into it, into that, into consciousness, or, of course, when it's Sagittarian, it's more like, I want to find meaning. That's really what Sagittarius wants. They want the truth with a capital T. They want to know the meaning of life. They want to know what's out there, what's beyond the immediate environment, what's on the other side. That's why Sagittarius is always connected with like foreign travel or with philosophy, with religion, because it's all just seeking those answers, right? And then especially when you put it in the 12th house, which is Pisces, which is completely spiritual, because it's really the house where it's the house of transcendence. So it's associated with things like, like chanting or meditation, of course, but like dance, like anything that you can do that takes you out of your body. On a higher level, of course, it's things that are wonderful, like dancing and like chanting and even like stargazing or playing music. But on a negative sense, probably maybe earlier in your life, it was like, how do I escape? Because you want to escape in the 12th house, because you don't feel comfortable in the physical world. So it can be things like drugs and alcohol, which is something I had to deal with my Pisces. It's like, before I knew how to kind of harness that, it was like,
100.
how do I get out of my body? Oh, this is an easy way. Gunk, gunk, gunk. You know what I mean?
Totally. And so easily affected by it. Like, so
Like, we don't need it. That's the thing. It's like
100.
we're already there.
Yeah. Right.
And especially with Neptune in your first house, like drugs and alcohol will have a very strong effect on you.
Mm-hmm.
And can have
Totally.
yeah.
It was like, it's almost like a different life, like and it's so interesting when I look back, of course, right? When we look back, the dots connect. And, I was just so desperate to feel okay, to have relief, and to just like nothing really made sense to me, you know, in in terms of the external world. And it was just like, what? And now I see it all as necessary and beautiful and like, oh, wow. Oof, okay, now it's time to like take care and nurture and like be present and like, oh,
Oh, especially the physical body. Because like I said, in the 12th house, we don't have a physical body, so we forget we have one. And
yes.
you like neglect it because you're like, and like opposite 12th house, you always want to look at polarities when you're trying to like figure out, especially when you have such a concentration in one house. You're like, okay, how can I balance out this energy? So you always want to look at the opposite house, which is the house of Virgo, the 6th house.
Okay. See, when I think of Virgo, I think of structure and
Totally.
organization and these things that I have. My husband really helps with that in
Yeah.
terms of the teeter-totter of life.
Yeah. Well, it's like all your energy is on the 12th, but like the more so for you or anyone with a lot of 12th house energy, it's so important to like, this is where like animals are good for this, because they allow you to develop that routine.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, Autumn.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it changed everything.
It gave you something to nurture, number one, which is a Virgo quality. Virgos are, they're caretakers. It's all about service, being of service. And it gave you like a purpose. It gave you something to take care of, but also it's like you got to get up at 7 and let them out to pee, like, you know what I mean, you got to feed them, you got to like be on that routine, which is good for you because it balances out that 12th house where it's like, okay, come back to earth, you know, come back to earth, Abby, like back into the physical world.
Totally. That's so interesting too, because so I have two stepkids, which now they're older, right? And hello.
How old are they? Hi.
So my stepson Braden, he's turning 18 this year.
Oh my goodness.
So I met him when he was 11.
Oh wow.
And then my stepdaughter, she lives with her mom full time. She's 14. And
Oh,
there was
thank
a
goodness she lives
time,
with her mom. 14 is such a tough age. Oh my goodness.
there was definitely a lot of growth and interesting things that have transpired to get us here. And having it almost feels like hyperdrive, like my life kind of went to hyperdrive. I having babies was never really for me. And even though it just, I don't know, but I love like having that and having the kids. And, you know, there was a time where my husband worked 9 to 5 and I cooked every day and I went to the grocery store and I had that structure. And, you know, life changes and it's constantly like, okay, what now? And just, it's interesting that the Virgo energy and doing that and routine and showing up for others can balance that out.
Yeah, and not to mention, darling, do you know anything about Chiron? This will be
Okay,
this
it's
will
a
be something.
mystery. I didn't even know how you said it. I've only ever seen it spelled. So I
Yeah.
always thought it was like Sharon.
Chiron. It's like, yeah, right, it's French.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Chiron is actually like one of my favorite. Like when I found out about Chiron, it was only like maybe 3 years ago, and I just was like, it was so, it was like, oh, okay. So basically the whole point of Chiron in our chart, it's not a planet, it's a like an asteroid. It's not big enough to be a planet, but it does have an orbit. It's got a really kind of funky orbit, and it's like just past Uranus. So, or Uranus, however you want to say it. I say it
Right.
both ways. um, but the whole point of Chiron, the placement of it. So basically, you're born 86, and Chiron was in Gemini for all of us born in 86. So what that means is like, so Chiron is called the wounded healer because they like there's a story about Chiron, and like Saturn was his dad and he ate him and whatever. He was like the outcast. He had a wound, and but his wound ended up being a gift. So Chiron for us is, it's a wound and a gift. So it's kind of like an insecurity, but it's also because we're so aware of this insecurity or this wound, it also gives us the ability to heal others and ourselves. So once we can heal it in ourselves, then we can offer it as a gift to others. Um, it's in Gemini. So everyone born in 86 has this deep insecurity about knowing. And I mean like knowing, not like the wisdom knowing of Sagittarius, but like the Gemini, like knowing the facts, being intelligent, you know, even like conversation. Um, I think it's because, like, think about it like this, you know, like we grew up with the internet, right? It was like, I was in AOL chat rooms when I was like 9.
Yeah.
It was like
Right.
scary,
Make it,
scary.
put it on the rate. I was trying to get into the chat room so hard, and I was spending night after night, like, just let me get into one, get some excitement.
Totally.
So
So I feel
I
like
wasn't in.
because we grew up in this like age of information where it's just so normal for us to just know everything, because we know that you, in a way, like you can know everything, like you can know the facts, right? So I think because our generation grew up with the fact that we know so much information because we grew up with the internet, that it gives us this insecurity that we're not confident to say that we know, because we know that there is so much to know, or that we know there's so many intelligent people and there's so much expertise, and you know, whatever it may be. So it gives us this insecurity versus like other generations which don't know shit but go around and say they do. But with our
That
generation, yeah,
that
right,
makes so much sense. I'm always like, how? Why are they so sure of themselves to say this?
totally. And that's our like insecurity. but this plays out in your sixth house, and sixth house is really, it's the house of Virgo, but it's the house of service. So there's like, number one, when you have Chiron in the sixth house, your work has to be connected to a purpose. Like you have to feel like the work that you're doing is meaningful, number one.
100.
But like earlier in your years, it might have been like you gave so much service because you felt like, and me too. It's like same with me. It's like we try to like know everything. We don't want to be caught off guard not knowing something, or be unaware of the facts or figures, or we don't want to look dumb, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's in your sixth house, it's just like, okay, eventually you have to be like, you know what, I have to feel confident in what I do know, and I have to be, and I want to, whatever my job may be, because sixth house is more the house of like jobs versus like the career, the mission, or your profession. It's more like the work you do for, like you said, like cooking dinner for your family, helping out the neighbor do something. It's kind of that just service-minded stuff. So there's like this deep, because it's in the house of Virgo in the sixth house, there's this deep like criticism of yourself and your work too. So be aware of that. Just be on the lookout for that. Or if it ever comes up where you're super critical of the work that you do, or
Right.
you're not doing enough, right? I'm not serving enough. I'm not doing enough. Oh, I should have gotten to this. I should have gotten to that, because that's Virgo
Yeah.
energy. Yeah.
I definitely have that.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
You're not
I
the
mean,
only one.
right. Yeah. I think on some level, I don't know, but there's this element of soft heart. It is just, and
Like
truly,
wanting to give, literally, like, because sixth house and 12th house, because it's opposite, Pisces, this axis is all about service, and it's all about compassion, and it's all about giving oneself. So Virgo gives oneself through physical work. Pisces gives himself through compassion and spiritual, open-heartedness of, I can feel you. I feel you. I will never judge you. It's that, Pisces, they just know pain. They know how harsh the world can be. So there's this really opening of the heart of, so that axis is really beautiful. And to have Chiron in the sixth house, that's what probably, it's almost like it's stimulating more of your 12th house and wanting to really make people feel better.
I
Right?
mean, it's so interesting to see, like, from the beginning of my life and on, it started with, I'm running for fifth grade class president, right? Like, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to get us longer recesses, and in my family too, trying to heal and save my mom and my dad. And that went on forever. And then seeking that, and studying to become an herbalist, and thinking, okay, and I, made all this plant medicine, did all this. This was going
That's
to be
a
my
huge sixth house thing, plant medicine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
wow. Well,
Huge.
and two,
That's it.
it saved my life, truly. Like, plants, it really wasn't until finding plants that it was like, I didn't know relief, actually, and health, and just
Back into the house of Virgo, all that stuff connecting to the physicals. That's the health of the body, the physical, like, usually that people are like, oh, sixth house is the house of health. It's actually the health house of sickness. So, so it's like where we go to really heal. Like I said, that axis is really about
wow.
healing. Sixth house is healing the physical body. 12th house is healing the spiritual self. So it makes sense. And also because your moon's in Taurus, it's like you need to work physically with the earth, because Taurus is an earth sign. So you are literally able to soothe yourself through touching plants. And then, sixth house is the house of herbal medicine and medicine in general. So
Wow.
it just makes sense that what you were creating, because your moon is in the fifth house, which is really the house of Leo, but it's where we create from self. It's where we can do something just for ourselves. We're not creating for anyone else. We're not, we're not doing it for pay. We're not doing it for accolades. We're not doing it for You know, we're just doing it because it makes us feel good. And so the more that you were doing something just to make yourself feel good.
That's so hard.
Right. Well, because all the Pisces energy, all the 12th house stuff, you're like, you always want to serve.
And two, I don't know what, like, I don't know what it is, but it's getting better. I'm getting much better at learning how to take care of myself. Like now I'm a whole different person.
Oh,
I was
girl.
counting down. Do you remember, have you ever heard that, right? Like we get a whole new body every 7 years. And so I was like,
Are we close? Wait,
okay,
what are we at? We're at 35. We're 30. Yes.
it's my 7th year too. It's my new body year. You too?
Me too, girl. 35. Oh,
New body
yes. I
year.
feel it. I feel it.
So that's funny. You understand. Like it's like,
Yeah.
okay. And again, that level of my mind then immediately goes to, okay, how can I share this with other people so that, which for a long, and I've noticed that, when we get into healing, we
Mhm.
automatically then want to, and we all fall into that, right? Until we stabilize and sort of find our gift to give that regenerates us. And like you finding astrology,
Oh,
I
it
don't,
saved my life. I
like if
like
you want to,
you, I was completely lost and disillusioned because like the opposite of the Pisces, that's like the lower vibrating energy, because every sign has a lower vibrating energy and a higher vibrate. So of course, like I wish that I was, could say that I just was, religious or just spiritual, but no, I was completely on the lower vibration where it was total dissolution, imagination taking over, land of make believe, because that's Pisces. It's like you don't even see the real world. It's like you're living in make believe land, which can be a
totally.
beautiful thing when you're like writing fantasy novels or doing something really creative, like
And no one's
music.
around to like take advantage of you or
Oh, 110%, because it gives you this innocence. And I was completely disillusioned by, oh my God, my relationships were just, I went through the ringer, girl. I went through the total ringer with that. And it was really tough, but like, and I'm still healing it. Like and like you said, like, it's like, okay, at what point do I feel comfortable? Like, because of course we have Chiron and Gemini. We're like, oh, we're not ready. We're not ready. We don't know enough. How am I going to share this while I'm still kind of learning on myself? But it's like, okay, at one point you just have to be like, I'm just going to do this because whatever. But astrology, once I started to learn about myself and my chart, I was just like, oh my gosh, it made so much sense. But it comes in like waves because, 10 years ago when I started learning about it, I was only, my level of consciousness was like here. But now that I'm like here, so much more can come in. And I know it's just a process of that. It's like you can't feed a baby steak, right? You got to feed the baby milk and then you feed them soft food. And so
and then shredded steak. Just kidding. Just kidding.
exactly. Tartar. And then, yeah, exactly. So yeah, that whole like, and of course I know this is, you're no stranger to it because of all your 12th house placements. It's like being taken advantage of for being so open-hearted and naive, because naive is a huge thing with that house. It's like not seeing, it's also the house of hidden enemies. So it's like, you just can't see it until it's too
That
late.
I remember reading that about my 12th house and being like, oh my God, it's so true, but I can feel it. And for so long, I went against what I felt
Mm.
because I went off how people looked and the words they said and who knows what else. But it's so interesting, just that element of remembering, okay, because it's easy for me to really like, I don't know if it's a Venus in Scorpio thing. I wanted to talk to you about that
Oh yeah, yeah.
because that scares me.
Well, again, it's like lower vibrating, higher vibrating. Of course, like I'm sure you're at a level now where that Venus and Scorpio is more for you about, well, because Scorpio is all about the truth. It's like, that is the mission of Scorpio. It's like, I'm not afraid of the truth. Show me the truth. But when you're young, I'm sure your Venus in Scorpio was like, I want to enmesh with you and be with you. And you attract that dark energy because it's like, you haven't yet learned that, oh, I got to be aware of the darker side of Scorpio, which is like manipulation and, oh gosh, abuse. And I mean, everything that is not seen, everything that's kind of lurking underneath the surface. But now you're like, okay, probably with your husband, it's like, all right, marriage is a Scorpio thing because you're sharing resources, right? You're like completely connected in that way. But it's these bonded relationships that aren't about like being held against your will or like being manipulated into a point where someone's able to like control you, because Scorpio is all about power and control. So you probably were attracting people who were very scorpionic. But when you're like, have your when you're young and naive, when you're a maiden, right? You get totally sucked into that. And we have Pluto in Scorpio because we're born of that generation. So actually,
so we all have Pluto.
Yes. So I want to show you. So Pluto is a super slow moving planet. So it takes Pluto 264 years to get around the entire zodiac. So it was in Scorpio for like, probably, I want to say 15 to 20 years. Actually, generationally, yeah, I'm thinking it started in like 74 and I think it ended in like 2000. So yeah, almost 30 years. So this is our generation. So people born in the Pluto Scorpio generation, because Scorpio is all about resources, our generation is going to change the way that the world uses natural resources, is what we're seeing, right? It's like we've been devastating the rainforests and we've been, doing all this raping pretty much of our Mother Earth. And we're here to kind of change that, where we can change the way that, and also change the way that people use their power, because Pluto's all about power. Pluto, but it's not all bad. So power can be really positive, right? Like, if you have power and you're using it in a way that's helping the world, that's beautiful. But obviously we've seen the misuse of power for, gosh, since we were born. I mean, since before we were born, since forever. But our generation is really here to change the way that power is being used. And that's why, now that Scorpio, or that Pluto just went into Capricorn, now it's at the last degrees of Capricorn, it's about to go into Aquarius in a couple of years. It's changing the way that power is being distributed. It's like, no longer can one person have so much power. We're seeing how detrimental that is, right, to the whole world. It's like, why is all the wealth with the 1%, right? This is totally not, it doesn't make any sense. It's actually really dangerous. So Pluto can be really dangerous in that way. But and having Pluto so close to your Venus, this is like, oh, this girl has been through some dark shit. She's seen some darkness, right? She's seen things that I don't like to say like taboo, because people are like, oh, Scorpio is like whatever's taboo. It's like, no, Scorpio is like abuse, it's rape, it's crime, it's the underworld. It's like the things that go on that
Sin City, baby. Grown up in Sin City, baby.
Sin City, baby, is right. But this is the good thing, because you're like, because you've seen the dark side, right? It's like, you've seen how bad people can be, like the behavior of people.
And in me too, the monsters in me.
Totally. But now that you've like learned, because the positive side of Scorpio, because it has a huge positive, it's a water sign. All water signs are healings. It's a healing energy. But Scorpio heals in this like volcanic way, where it really wants to know the truth. It's it's a detective, and it wants to it's not afraid to go beneath the surface. Like, it's not about superficiality. It's like, fuck the superficial. I don't give a shit. What I see, I know isn't the truth. I want the truth. So especially you, because you have Venus in Scorpio, you need the truth. Like, you want it, and you're able to go down underneath And Scorpio works in a volcanic way. When it heals, it takes everything that's underneath the surface and it volcanically brings it to the surface so it can see the light and it can be healed. Because if we don't bring all that up, it's going to like fester and just push it down, but eventually it's got to come up. And then finally, when it comes up, you can be like, you can let it go and it can be healed. And there's this whole because Scorpio is all about regenerating. So that's how it heals. So something has to die, right, before it can be reborn. And you've seen this time and time again because you have, and where this kind of went on in your life is with groups and in your public life, in groups of friendships especially.
100.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So like first of all, you probably, when you were younger, it was like, this is my best friend, or you're really like possessive, kind of obsessed with your groups or with whatever it may be, whatever organization you were part of, right? Whatever that public poly was. But now you're like, oh, okay, well, now I've seen like how that can actually be not a great thing when you're so possessed into a group, or it's such like because it's a really like power hungry, like, you know, that Scorpio energy, like I said, that lower vibrating is really like you're mine, or like you can't go, like you're part of me. It's like total enmeshing. But now you're like, okay, now that I've seen how power can be like devastating, now I want to use it. I want to be able to use that Scorpio energy to be able to, you know, shine the light on the darkness so that it can be seen, so it can be healed, and it can, those older parts of myself can die off so that new can be born.
It truly feels that way. Like and I would always, you know, look at people and groups, right? And just be like, gosh, it feels like I enter worlds and then I leave worlds. And for so long, enmeshment was my life. And
me too.
On some level, I think, you know, it kind of has to be almost like being in an egg, right? And until we're ready to be our solid sort of self, it's like, okay, now I'm a person now. I'm a real person.
Yeah, and not to mention this Scorpio energy is opposite your moon in Taurus. So like, again, let's talk about the polarity. So it's like one side of you, your moon, which is, our moon is so intimate, and it's like, I want to read something from my favorite book about, actually I'll read it right now. So like, when you have this book is incredible, and I suggest that you purchase it, and I will send you the title, because
I've heard about this book. I want to read it.
You have so much water in your chart. This will like blow your mind. And it will be like, oh, like it's blown my mind. I just got it like maybe 3 months ago, and I'm just like, I'm obsessed with it. I try not to like use it in all my but I do like to read about the moon, because I feel like moon is a really personal thing. So Stephen Forrest is the author of this. He's an amazing astrologer. He's been around for like since the 70s. But moon in Taurus, so the evolutionary goal, it says, I resolve to try to calm down and to remain quietly, serenely centered no matter what happens. I will not sweat the small stuff. I resolve to fully inhabit my physical body and avail myself of the wisdom of all its built-in instincts. I will learn to trust my guts. I aim to find inner silence in this lifetime and to listen to it very carefully. So your secret to happiness says, to be happy, it helps me enormously to find time to work with my hands using physical materials that come from the earth. I also benefit a lot from quiet time. Dolce far niente, as the Italians say. Sometimes it is just sweet to do nothing. Music makes me happy. Time spent in nature makes me happy. Good food shared with familiar faces makes me happy. And it says in the old hymn, it is a gift to be simple. I really understand that, and I strive to live that way. And then you have that energy in the 5th house. So moon in the 5th house, the healing I seek, it says, in this lifetime, I need to recover a genuine sense that I am glad to be here in this world and in this physical body. I resolve to escape from unnecessary constraint, inhibition, and self-consciousness. I will enjoy my life. I will not be afraid to revel in it. I do not demonize pleasure. I use the word sin sparingly and only in the context of hurting someone. I will learn to express myself spontaneously. I will claim a creative outlet. I will act as if I expect applause rather than criticism. I will become more skillful at the selection of partners and friends.
Oh, that was so beautiful.
So like your moon is so grounded and like, you know, it's ground, like it's earth, it's grounded. It's like, it just wants like a simple life of, you know, surrounded by friends and good food,
Stillness, yes, food.
right? Food. But then like opposite that energy in your 11th house is all the Scorpio energy, which is like, I can't, Scorpio gets its energy through relationships and through other people, which is how it kind of works. And it's a beautiful thing because it's able to share. It's able to share emotional energy with others. That's why like marriage is a great example of a positive way that Scorpio energy works. It's like we share resources, we, you know, we live in the same house, we share finances, whatever it may be. You can see how that can get out of hand with sometimes when you're not married or if you're in a relationship that it's not it's not equal on both sides. Like one person's being, you know, controlled or whatever. And then your moon energy is like, I'm going to build it myself, because Taurus is really all about like one's own power versus sharing power with others or getting power from others. So you have this polarity. Your creative self in your 5th house where you create is like, I want to build it myself. I want to see it too. And then like your 11th house, which is helping, but it's like this pull of like, but I also need to share resources and able to balance out this creative energy or the things that I want.
Totally. Like that feels exactly like where I am and where I sort of sit right now. And two, at this level of consciousness. And that's kind of the goal, right? That's the goal, is to be fully ourselves and give freely and to share and to show up for ourselves and enjoy. It's the dream.
Totally. And it's like, because we have this Pluto and Scorpio, like we know how it, like we think about all the people that we know that are like marry rich and just like sell their soul to the devil, right? It's like, I don't care. I just want to be, I want to be wealthy. I want to be powerful. I want to marry a powerful man. I mean, I don't know if, I mean, I figure since we're born the same year, it's like I see this a lot, like with people of my age, especially I live in LA. It's like rampant, you know, it's all about power, money. It's like
power, money, sex, power, money.
Totally. So that's Pluto, like that's total Pluto energy. But then that Taurus energy is like, wait, okay, so if he ditches your ass and kicks you out, you know, because he's doing it with someone else, he's got that Scorpio energy, or she, whatever it may be. It's like, what are you going to be left with? That kind of was a lesson, a big lesson I had to learn with my, I also have Pluto in the 11th house. So it's like when I was younger, because I grew up in a really big family, I was always at my friends' houses because I relied on their families to really take care of me. Because like my house was complete chaos and like I was very much neglected. I mean, I wasn't abused, but I was neglected, you know. It was like, oh, like I was the 5th born out of 6. It was like doing my laundry age 7, you know, and like being so I kind of connected to groups because it was like the only way that I felt like I had like was supported. And so like I'm learning my Taurus lesson too of like, you got to build it on your own, because if that goes away, it's like, what are you going to be left with? You got to like sustain yourself or like be secure in what you have to offer versus always relying on, you know, relationships or shared resources.
It's very interesting. And it's, I think we all maybe have to go through that where the rug is swept up and a couple times and however many times it takes, and to really be face to face with the nothingness that you kind of have made your life or your God, right? And all these things have to go away. and like, okay, now I'm ready to build on solid ground with grace, right? Now, before I was alone on some level, right? I was always connected, always protected, always, but there was this deep desperation and aloneness and, not wanting to be here,
Oh yeah.
not,
Not feeling like you belong here.
100.
Yeah.
and
Me too.
then realizing, oh, okay, again, like you hear said time and time again of be who you are and give that, like that's what your gift is, this level of like we deny ourselves until we can't anymore, and you just have to trust, and you can build anything if you remember that, right? You're not building it alone.
Oh, totally. And I absolutely agree that eventually, because we were talking about the ego, it's like, yeah, we have to have an ego, but you have to realize that the ego only goes so far, just like the intellectual mind only goes so far. I mean, there's only so much that we know. It's like only like whatever, the unknowable God is really the only one who knows it all. So for you to think that you're ever going to get there alone is completely insanity to me. At one point, you have to be like, okay, I can bring it halfway, but the other half has to be filled in by whatever your God is, whatever you believe in to be the divine. And that's a difference between like knowledge and wisdom, right? It's like wisdom is knowing that you've been given a gift, and you didn't create it necessarily. It's like you are it, and it's a part of you, and you're a part of it. But it's like if you try to do it, I try to do it. Believe me, both of my parents were super religious, met in a Christian commune in the 70s, like a very like upstanding one, not like a very cultish one. They were evangelists, like, preaching the word of God and Jesus. And my mom still is very dogmatic in her view. She's very, she's kind of like a can't get off the cross kind of thing, like constantly talking about how Jesus died for our sins. And I can take it in and it doesn't really bother me, but I've had to build my own relationship with what God means to me, and like how I want to co-create with God, and how I want to like give in, right? Like have faith that it's a benevolent world and that we're here for a reason. We're here, we have a message I think we all have a message inside of us, but it's like giving up that wanting to know everything. That's when stuff finally starts to flow. And I'm still working on it. Gosh, I'm working on it to the end of my life.
Me too. Hopefully, like that's what I want. I want to constantly be.
That's that Sagittarius in you. It's like you're always going to be shooting up. It's like always expanding, always trying to learn more, and not just learn more, but just your wisdom, to experience more so that you can have more wisdom as well. So do you want to talk about one more thing?
Oh, sure.
Okay. I want to talk about your nodes, because this is like, I didn't really even talk about your Mars and Jupiter in the third house. Basically, I wanted to just say this is that when you have, so the third house is the house of Gemini. So it's really the house of how we're sifting and sorting our immediate environment. And this is even more of that Pisces energy, where having Mars in Pisces is like, it's like Mars is like the god of war, right? It's really like how we take action. It's like how we're like a warrior, and you're a spiritual warrior, right? It's like you're a spiritual warrior. When you take action, it's action that's going to heal, right? It's action to bring compassion. It's action to, so like your creative world, like how you create and what I see you creating, that's totally your artistic. This is because you have Mars and Pisces. You're able to funnel all this energy from Mars into your creative world, into this world where you can transcend through music, through art, what you're doing online, like when you create your graphics, like all of that is important that you're expressing it through that outlet, that Mars outlet. And you need to be doing it like every day, because you feel like every day when you have Mars in the third house, it feels like you need to be doing stuff every day. Like you're busy every day, but you're busy in a very mystical way, because it's a Pisces energy. So it's like you're busy in a very spiritual way. You're like in the other realm, kind of creating through, you know, whatever your outlet may be, whatever creative outlet you use. And then having Mars so close to Jupiter gives it this like extra push of expansion, because wherever Jupiter is in our chart is really where we get where everything expands and gets bigger. So like when you like having Mars and Jupiter together, this is like an explosive combination, which is totally beautiful. It could be totally awful too. It could be like someone's a raging alcoholic. Like it could totally be that.
Totally. It has been.
Me as well. Yeah. So I have Jupiter in the third house as well. So I get it.
Wow, that is so funny.
But on the opposite, right? It's like, okay, but now you're like creating like crazy. That's where all your energy is going, or you're, you know, or you're being spiritual every day. You're doing your yoga, you're doing your meditation, you're doing, you know, whatever that positive side of Pisces, that's not the escapism where it's detrimental to your health, but it's escapism in a way where you can transcend and reach those higher realms of consciousness, which is what you're trying to do. So it's like the deeper you swim down really into your spiritual life and world, however you do that, through music, through art, through comedy, because Pisces is, comedy is Sagittarian and Pisces both. I've seen it like be described both ways, because Sagittarian is the comedian, especially a Sag rising is like the comedian rising sign. But Pisces, the whole joke for Pisces is like, we get the joke of life. It's like, do you think that like you're not going to die one day? Like it's like, stop taking yourself so fucking seriously, really.
It's Autumn. That is like my number one. And for a long time, I thought there's something wrong with me. Like, why am I so irked? Everybody just takes it so seriously. Like, so, and I get it. I get it. And that's why I've always felt like an outsider, whether it was from the theater kids, from art club, from the swim team, from my family, from yoga teachers, from actors, from whatever,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, because on some level, I'm a little like, but there's just so much.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and it's like, you know that there's so much, and that you know that you're, you know, because Pisces is like knowing that this is all one, you are a small part of a whole. And that's why Pisces can laugh and not take themselves so seriously, because they're able to kind of like transcend their ego and their personality to be like, you're not that important. Well, let's just have some fun. You know, let's just get goofy. Let's just play, right? Because Pisces is all about make believe and playing, and like, and, you know, theater, of course, is a 12th house thing too, because we're able to act and we're able to be someone we're not, because that's the whole fun of it all, right? So this is a really strong energy. This is how you communicate. You're able to communicate this, and that's how you do it with this really like, you know, it's this compassionate energy because it's Pisces, but it's like total non-judgmental, you know, non-judgmental and completely open and fluid and deep. And I think it's amazing because you're able to be funny, and like make funny, you know, just be hilarious actually. But also still be like in your heart, you know, it's not an ego thing at all. It's like,
right. It's been, and it's kind of like I felt divided a lot in my life, right? Like between this comedian and between the spiritual person, and trying to mold the two. It's been a very interesting, just a constant daily in the moment practice. And little by little, it's like, oh, if I just show up as I am, what I create will be grounded and rooted in who I am, hopefully.
what you create will always be grounded, because your fifth house has the moon in Taurus. So it's like you are just looking for that simple, yeah, you thank goodness you have this, you know, earth energy, because otherwise you're all fire. Well, you got some air, but you're mostly fire and water. and that creates steam, and it's like, boom, you can be hot, you can burn, like you can burn someone if you need to, like hot,
100.
right?
Yeah, that was for a long
Me
time. It
too.
was just, and my words, intellect, just any, I could.
Me and you have so much in common, and I know that because I know my chart. I'm looking at yours and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like, is she me in another life?
Right? That makes me so happy, especially too, like, because it feels so intimate,
Oh,
like,
totally is.
oh, Autumn's gonna look at my chart. She's
It's
gonna know
very,
me.
it's very
She's gonna know me.
intimate. It's very intimate. Well, like this is something we share. So, okay, so one thing that's really, we'll talk about we can talk about both things at once because they're both here. So, like our chart, if you think about this as like a natal cross, that's what it's called, right? So it's like, this is our ascendant, this is our descendant. So this is how this is really how others see us. So like they see you as this like very gregarious, friendly, airy Gemini kind of energy, but into the Cancer as well. So they see that water part of you. But our up here, this is called the midheaven. So this is like the midheaven point of our chart is really how we project ourselves to the public. It's like our public face, it's our politician face. And so whatever sign rules this midheaven point is really like how you want to present yourself to the public, or like, if you were going to a PTO meeting for your kids or whatever it may be, or your profession, your career. And it's in Libra. So Libra, of course, is all about balance. It's all about relationships. It's all about peace and harmony. And it makes sense for you because you're creating art. Libra is connected to Venus, and that's create to art. It's more like fine art, but that makes sense. But I want to more talk about this point. This is the nadir point, which is a really interesting point because it can describe to us kind of like what we grew out of in order to have this Libra facade that you have, which is like the peacemaker. It's like you actually want to bring peace and beauty and harmony to public social situations. It's like if you're hanging out in a group of people, like you're not going to be like, you're not going to have this Aries energy, which you kind of grew up with. So think of it like, again, this is another polar. So we share this. So when you have Aries at this, it's called Coeli. It's like it's a Latin word, but it's also called the nadir, Nadir, which is, it can describe kind of like where we get, like, about chakras, right? So think about this as like the energy of our root chakra. And so it's this Aries energy where the thing that really drives us, like the thing that's really at the root of who we are, and that pushes us out like into the public sphere, allows us to have this very refined, peaceful harm, is that we come from fire. And like Aries energy is, it's the fire that begins the entire zodiac. It's this really like flaming hot, initiating, like childlike energy of action and force. Now this can like manifest in a few different ways. Like some people say, okay, this could describe your early childhood. So it made sense for me because I'm like, oh yeah, duh, because number one, there was always fighting in my house, right? And Aries is ruled by Mars, which is like it's the warrior, it's fighting, it's action, it's violence, literally, at battles, so I'm like, okay, that makes sense because my early childhood, my parents were always fighting, and then we moved a lot, so there's always a new beginning because Aries is also new beginnings. But because you like came from this kind of like energy of like, you were a spitfire, it's like when you were younger, you're probably really like high energy, but like as you grow up, or as you grow out like a flower, you're able to come into this Libra energy, which is the opposite of Aries. So it's not about being selfish, it's not about just self and ego, it's about relationships, it's about compromise, it's about harmony, it's about balance, justice. Even, I'm sure social justice is probably something close to your heart as well, something you try to project out into the world, like, let's all just get along kind of thing. And
It's so, sorry, I
no,
cut you off.
go.
It's so interesting. And I remember reading a little something about the Aries Libra, and my mom was an Aries, and that fire, that mean childlike selfishness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But pretending it's not there, pretending that that's not what's happening. So I had a lot of confused rage. And literally I have on the back of my neck a red spot that when I get mad. And I guess I had it since I was a baby, and it would
Wait,
just turn bright
do you
red
have
on the
a
back of my,
birthmark?
and it only appears when I'm angry. It'll turn red
No way.
and then it goes away, and it's just a spot. And like this amount of that was really confused. And then, in 2014 is really when my, like, a big shift towards, okay, I'm going to face the sun now. And which is why I say, okay, I'm at 7 years now. My 7-year new body is here. And that's when I feel like, right, I can say something just switched in me, but it feels like this divine clock just went tick, click, and then it
That,
was time.
that's what the zodiac is, because it never stops moving. So we're always changing. Thank goodness. Can you believe if things stayed the same? Boy, so it's like it's moving out here, it's moving in here. Everything is connected, that. So it's like spirals, we're spiraling up, hopefully. That's what we're trying to do, right? Like elevate our consciousness and awareness.
Totally. And that's it's just so interesting, right? That I think so much of our sadness comes from, we think it's going to be this way forever. Same way with the other side, right? I look back and there are times I go, wow, I didn't realize how wonderful that was. And no matter what, it's going to change and it's not here. And this level of really practicing and working towards being present, and like yoga really helped me with that. I found yoga when I was like 18. My parents had just divorced and I was flung out into the world, right? And was a child, but didn't think I was.
Right.
And so it's just so
Oh, it's
interesting
so
to,
crazy to look back and be like, I thought I had my shit together. Like I'm like, so humbling getting older. Isn't it just so
it
amazing?
is. It's my favorite
Me
thing. It really
too.
is. It really is. And I think 35, when I was young, you think a 35-year-old woman,
I know.
what's a 35-year-old woman going to be
I
doing? And it's
know.
like, it's a different world now.
It's so different. And I know, like when we were, well, when we were like 12, we'd be like 35. That was like, oh, like God forbid, like, and then like 40, you're like, ugh. But yeah, of course.
And now I'm just like, yes,
Yes,
yes.
bring it
Like,
on.
I'm not going to believe and hear and listen to those old voices that are like, it's hell getting old. I hear you. I'm sorry. It's hell for you getting old.
Totally. That's how I feel
Don't put
too.
it on me.
Yeah. And also like 12th house is late bloomers. So when you have Saturn, which we like barely touched on, but that's a dark one. Saturn in the 12th. I also have it. It's like
I always associate Saturn with Satan
it's
in terms of, like, the sun would be right. Like in terms of the great battle.
mm,
I don't know.
like Satan. I don't know. I don't really think like Satan. I don't know if I associate any planets, but because
Totally. I guess the word I should say, because I think of Satan in a different way, right?
sure,
But the material
100%. So like,
planet.
Saturn is like, because it was the last planet that could be seen by the naked eye, the Greeks said, okay, Saturn is what holds the universe together. So Saturn was Kronos. He ruled time. He ruled structure and boundaries. So yeah, Saturn was associated with military and government and rules and limitations and restrictions. But wherever it is in our chart is actually, it's beneficial to us, because if nothing had form or structure, it would fall apart, right? It would be like Pisces. It would be like Neptune, where like nothing has form, like there are no boundaries, which isn't good, right? As we learned in our life, it's good to have boundaries. At one point we
Mm-hmm.
didn't, and we let
Mm-hmm.
anything in, and then it
Mm-hmm.
fucked us
We're
over.
sponges.
Exactly. But where it is in your chart is really where you're doing the building. But when it's in the 12th house, most of the work that you do, because Saturn is all about a mission. Like I have a mission. It's like the mountain goat, right? Because Saturn is Capricorn energy. So it's someone who is slowly building towards a goal, towards a mission. It's the mountain goat going up the mountain, the side one step at a time, and eventually it gets on top. So it's hard to do the work that we do because we both have Saturn in the 12th house is all behind the scenes, because 12th house is behind the scenes. It's not seen. There is no physical form in the 12th house. So we have the physically building planet in a house that doesn't have form. So this is what happens. We don't get recognition for the work that we do because it's not seen. It's like behind the scenes, but we feel comfortable doing the work behind the scenes because we don't necessarily feel comfortable out in the public eye. We don't really necessarily, it's like probably for you because you're able to not be Abby, you know what I mean? So it's easier for you to kind of put yourself out there.
100.
But it's also when we have Saturn in the 12th, like we need our alone time. We need to recharge. We need to actually, we like to be isolated. Like we don't mind closed off spaces. Like I could be in, I mean, when I lived in the Adirondacks, I'd like be in my apartment for like 3 days at a time sometimes. So it's like that karma thing. It's like,
totally.
Was I a prisoner in a last life? Like I feel really comfortable being like isolated.
I'm just grateful with this little bit of space. I just have my work here and I'm fine. But I'll be just fine.
Right?
Deliver the food.
Seriously. But it's also that spiritual work that you're doing because it's in the 12th house. So it's like the further that we can like dive down into like our consciousness, into our into the spirituality of like just like into the deep ocean of consciousness. It's like we feel really comfortable going deep down in. And yeah, Saturn in the 12th, it sucks because there's hidden enemies there too. So it's like people trying to sabotage you, and it's not a great placement. But what I've found about it is like, you know what? Okay, like Barack Obama has Saturn in his 12th house. So I'm like, most of the work that he did and during his administration was like behind the scenes. So like a lot of the
it's
shit
interesting. It's again like the shadow and the light and the gift and the just this element of accepting what it is and doing it regardless of the fruit, right?
Totally. Exactly. You just said it. That's all about the 12th house. I don't need recognition.
Hard,
it's like, I'm doing this because it's like, this doesn't have to be connected, because Capricorn is like, I want accolades. I want reward. I want awards. I want to be recognized publicly for my work. And when it's in the 12th house, it's like, I don't give a shit, because I know that what I'm creating with complete humility of knowing that it's not just me. Because that oneness, you're like, oh yeah, this is, so you're not attached to it, because it's all about detachment. Non-attachment is the 12th house. It's like completely detaching yourself from your ego self, from your body. It's like realizing that the more you're attached to something, the more it's just, it can really take you down.
Oh, Autumn, so awesome. I feel so grateful. So grateful to you. And
I'm so happy to do it. And it was like fun for me. I thank you for that, because that's what I'm learning really is like, Autumn, you got to meet people for where they're at. Like I used to just be a talking head, like going through all the aspects and I wasn't connecting.
That's part of it, right? Like that's just, I just heard this quote that was like, if you look back at yesterday and like you wouldn't change a thing about what you made, like it's not good enough. And while I don't fully agree with all of that, this level of, you're growing every day. So that looking back, it's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to judge that. Like when I started teaching yoga, it was, again, these things with astrology, yoga, spiritual, like whatever
It's
it
a
is
journey. It's a
we're
long journey for
sharing,
us. Yeah.
it's very interesting. It's not concrete, and it is long. And this level of meeting people where they are and really just being present. And like, I never had a plan for my yoga classes. And a lot of that I'm gifted with the improv and
You're
maybe
gifted
the
with the
Mercury
12th house. It's the
Sagittarius
12th
and the 12th.
house. It's all your 12th house.
Okay. So
It's like
thank
just, well,
God for
you're
the
like
12th house.
intuition. You're just like, you can literally tap into the, like you're tapping into this energy that not many people can tap into. Your Mercury there, I mean, yes. So I have to say that it's your 12th house. You're like, boom, you're right in the flow of consciousness, of like oneness, of the cosmic consciousness, right?
Mm,
You're just there. So you didn't have a plan. And what did it go better, right, than if you did?
totally. And I saw, I didn't realize how hard it was, for some of the other teachers, because we're so stuck on, okay, I have to say this, I have to do this, I have to, right? And it is unique to us. There's no one way to teach a class, there's no one way to read a chart. And it really is this level of namaste, right? I have to, on some level, see the divine in you for this to work.
It's so true.
Because
It's,
I've lived the other way.
yeah, totally. Learning lessons every day.
Um, where can people find you and get their birth chart read?
AutumnJoyAstrology.com. You can find me there. And you can also follow me on Instagram, Autumn Joy Astro. So, and the link is in the bio in my Instagram, so they can find my website there too.
I really enjoyed your website and reading
Oh.
your forecasts. Like, they're spot on. And I love just that level of synchronicity, and that the stars, right? This element of people could say, "Oh, you believe that? You believe in that horse shit." It's like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
And yes, I've experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
And on some level, right? The sky clock, like, we're made of it. We know we're made of.
We totally are. It's a reflect where we reflect one another. It's you know what? If it makes anyone feel better about who they are or how their life is going, then I mean, it changed my life because it gave me some. It's like it just made me feel like I wasn't alone, and that these things were, like you said, they were reflected. They were reflected in the sky, and that we're all going through these things together. We're all going through these energies together. And I think people want to think that they're the only one that's experiencing this right now, but it's like, no, we all are. And they're like, oh, well, if, when you like see the horoscopes, and that's something that's very misunderstood because it's a very general horoscope for your sun sign. But when you do a full natal, and everyone who I've given a chart reading to, they're just like, thank you, because I knew these things about myself, but to hear them from you, it almost like confirms all the feelings I've had my whole life about who I am. And when I started doing the work myself, and it blew my mind, and I was like, oh, that was when I was like, I have to start giving this away because it's been so helpful for me. And healing, like deeply healing work.
And I truly feel that that is a huge part of healing, is validation.
Mm-hmm.
We get it from inside. And then there's this level of, we'll meet people, teachers, spiritual friends, our tribe, that mirror it back to us. And that's a gift. And that's something that you're able to give by deciphering the planets, the stars, the houses, because it is, on some level, the minute we realize I'm not alone and this is true and my feelings are true and this is who I am, it's like, wow, okay, like, this is a new day.
Self-awareness is so amazing because, again, we've all walked around not being self-aware. We all were young, we all were stupid, we all were naive at some point. And then it's like, the more you learn about your shit, it's like, listen, everyone's got shit. No one's perfect. No one is a saint. You know, we all have things that we've done. We've all made mistakes. We've all, you know, hopefully we've learned and grown from them. But that self-awareness is so key, because then you're just not an asshole. You know, it's, I mean, it's like, you got to look in the mirror, you got to do your work, whatever that may be. Everyone has different work to do. So it's like, you do yoga, that's the kind of work that you do. You know, that's how you work it out. You know, this is how I work it out. And to do both, or to do whatever it is, you know, you get this because you're a Sag. It's like, whatever the outlet is, it doesn't matter. We all want the same thing. We want to feel peace. We want to feel at peace in ourselves.
That's the driving thing. I think that eventually I look around and that's what everybody surrounding me wants to. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is a new earth. Like, I'm surrounded by peacemakers and peace desirers.
That's our generation, baby. Like, it, you know, and the people that came before us started that for us. So it just keeps evolving, and we keep spiraling up, you know, and ascending, hopefully, into, you know, a peaceful world where we can all love one another. But, you know, we can love ourselves, you know, love yourself, love the other. There's no difference.
And the end is the beginning. I have this feeling
Mm.
that do you follow Robert Edward Grant?
No, I'll write
I
that
don't know if I
down.
ever tagged you in something. He is just the coolest. He goes to Egypt and the pyramids and Da Vinci. He's uncovering all of this stuff currently, and it's literally in real time. It's as if, as we're gaining consciousness, these symbols are appearing in the pyramid, which,
Because
of
we weren't
course,
ready for them before, right? It's
you
like,
can't see what you can't
it's
see.
just like Chiron. It didn't get discovered until the 70s. And that's when the whole spiritual, like, people started to heal spiritually in the 70s in the US, of course. They were doing that way before in other places. But yeah, I will definitely look him up. And I love all the sacred geometry and all of that.
Maybe one day you and I can go to the pyramids, Autumn.
Yes, that would be
Let's,
amazing.
oh my,
And
one day.
also, maybe you guys also are always welcome in Venice if you want to get to the beach, because you're only like a 4-hour drive.
We are pretty close. And you know what? My husband's like huge spiritual moment in 2008 involved Venice Beach.
No way.
So it's such a special place for him.
Okay,
It's such
I
a
literally have a guest bedroom with a, I just gotta pull out sofa bed. Oh, I
congratulations.
took a huge leap, girl. And also get ready for our Jupiter return, which is happening next year, early next year. So this is huge. It only happens every 12 years. And Jupiter, when Jupiter goes back into Pisces, which it did 12 years ago from 2022, so like 2009, if you look back to that year of your life, you'll see that like you expanded in some way. But I feel like this next Jupiter return for us is going to be really huge. So, like, in the best of ways, it's going to expand our lives. It's going to expand our consciousness. It's going to expand our opportunities, our wealth, the abundance. It's all coming for us. So,